Good morning. I'm Eileen, and today I'm going to be reading a story to you, a folk tale. It comes from Norway. Who's That Knocking on the Door Christmas Eve? And it's told by Jan Brett, but the story has actually been told over and over since before in the 1800s. And I hope you'll enjoy it today. Our story today is from Norway. First, we're going to take a look at where we are right now. We're in North Carolina in the United States of America. And when my grandparents came over, we're going to go backwards now. We're going from the United States over to Norway, which is an island or a peninsula over there. And it's surrounded by water. That's where the trolls come from. They're little creatures that live up there, and they do mischievous things like spill the dog's water or eat your cookies. In Norway, it's also a fairly cold country. Up in the part, there's an Arctic Circle. And that's an area that right now is totally dark for 24 hours a day because there's not much sun up there. There's no sun up there. And it's also where the polar bear lives. And this is part of our story. The polar bear is a bear about my height, but weighs 10 times more. He has black skin and a white fur. It's a method he has of keeping warm. And in our story, there's a boy going from Oslo, or from the Arctic Circle, down to Norway with his polar bear. And it's called a white bear in the story. And he's going to show his friends off. And on the way down, he stops on Christmas Eve somewhere between the two places. And when he sees this house, and then they go in. Oh, and trolls are mischievous little creatures. And they're going to come visit the house today. And I said if they're upset with you or something, they may come in and eat your cookies. And the stories up there have been told from person to person for a very long time. And there was a forester up in there and his brother, and they went around, did their work during the day, and then at night they collected the stories. And this is one of the stories that they've been handed down to us. And Jan Brett has done a marvelous job of retelling it for us. Jan Brett's illustrations start the story in Norway, somewhere between Oslo and the Arctic Circle. The air is so crisp and clean in this northern place that one Christmas Eve long ago, a boy from Finnmark on his way to Oslo with the ice bear could see smoke circling from a hut near in the distance. He was cold and hungry, so he headed towards the smoke. Far in the distance, someone else smelled the smoke, and even though he couldn't see it, he raced off to tell the others. That's our troll. As the boy from Finnmark made his way towards the hut, Kyra was inside feeding the fire that made the smoke that roasted and baked the fine food. Delicious sausages and fish and savory buns were laid out on the pine table. Sweet porridge bubbled over the fire, and the apple cider stayed cool in the windowsill. So why did Kyra jump when she heard an icicle drop? And why did she run to the window and check out? It was because in years past on Christmas Eve, trolls came when they smelled delicious aromas from the hut. They would pound on the door until they burst open, and then they would leave until they had eaten every last bit of the Christmas feast. No troll invasion this year, Kyra's father had said, and there he is going outside. I'm going up the mountain to watch and catch them. And off he was gone to stop the trolls before the trouble began. So this year, Kyra was alone in the hut when she heard a soft rapping at the door. Knock, knock me, knock. Someone was out there, but surely it was too polite a knock for a troll. So Kyra went to the door and she peeked out. There was the boy from Finnmark with his ice bear. Please let me inside to warm up, he said. I'm on my way to south to show off my bear to the town folks of Oslo. I've many frosty miles to go behind me and many more to go. Come in, said Kyra, but I have to warn you that in the past years our house has been invaded by a pack of hungry trolls. Trolls would be a welcome adventure, said the boy. So he came in, and the ice bear crawled under his way underneath the stove, where it was warm, and fell asleep. Kyra and the boy had just settled down in front of the fire when there was not such a soft knocking on the door this time. Knock, 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 knock. There's no one home, the boy called out. He was certain it was a troll, so he pushed a big chest in front of the door. When it was all quiet, Kyra and the boy sat down in front of the fire again, and Kyra got to thinking, I wonder if the porridge is creamy enough. and she ladled bits of it into a bowl for each of them. They had just raised their bowls when they heard another loud knock, knock, knock. It was someone pounding on the door with a big rock. "No one's home," the boy called and he ran back to lock all of the windows. It was quiet again, but delicious smells wafted around the hut, and Kyra got to thinking, is the sausage salty enough? So she took a piece for herself and gave one to the boy. They had just raised it to their mouth when they heard a thunderous knockety-knock, knockety-knock. The hut shook, and they heard a loud crack. It was the cellar door. Kyra and the boy ran into the animal shed and pulled the door shut just as a torrent of noisy trolls rolled into the room. They were bad-eared trolls. There were bug-nosed trolls, and each troll was wider and more loud than the one before. They munched and grunted and shrieked and cracked and splashed the spider and crammed themselves with Christmas cake. Then, when they were through stuffing themselves, they trundled about, pinching each other, stamping on each other's feet, and tweaking their long snouts, which is how trolls have a good time. But the ruckus and the din, the littlest troll spied the big ice bear under the fire. So he took a morsel of sausage that had been roasting in the fire, and he screeched, "Have a bit of sausage, kitty." And he poked the sleeping bear right in the nose with the hot stick. And that's a bear, not a kitten. The ice bear leaped up with a tremendous roar, and the noise bounded terribly, growling and chasing the little troll and the big trolls around the table, around the walls, and out the windows. "Scratch him, kitty," the boy yelled. Kyra and the boy cheered as the trolls scrambled off through the ice and the snow, howling. And up on the hill, Kyra's father heard the shouts, so he came running down from the hill. When he saw the trolls, Kyra's father could tell in an instant that they wanted to be as far away from the hut as they could be. "Goodbye, trolls," he shouted as they disappeared, and he slid home. "What a fine bear you have," he said to the boy from Finnmark. "Thank you for scaring away those pesky trolls. You must come back next year for a real Christmas Eve feast on your way home from Oslo." And they sat down for some pudding. A year later, Kyra was on the mountains gathering wood to cook a fire for Christmas Eve, when the littlest troll popped out from behind the rocks. "Missy," he called in a high, creaky voice, "do you still have that kitty that sleeps under your stove?" "Oh, yes," Kyra said, "and she has grown into a big cat now, and she has 7 kittens, all larger and fiercer than herself." "Ah," he screeched, "then we won't be visiting your hut this Christmas Eve." And he disappeared. Hey, thank you for being here today to hear the story, and for visiting the Teller of Tales. And one more thing about trolls. When the church bells ring, they lose their tails. So that's how you know the trolls are. Thanks for being here.